Hi,
I'm Jason.
I'm Chelsea.
We're the Munsons.
And we weren't planning on having kids.
Much less adopt.
So,
when we became parents, we hit the books and hired the experts.
And this is what we learned.
These are our family hacks.
Now we are going to talk about the second step, which is identifying the need.
Yes, under the umbrella of
Feelings and
needs language.
So the reason that this is an important step is because once we are able to connect with what our need is and have clarity over that, it really supports the languaging of getting those needs met. If you're not sure what you need, how are you going to fill it, right?
And if you don't know what the other person needs, then how can you fill it?
How can you fill it?
So this is one thing that we found is just the basis of kind of this whole concept of feelings and needs language and basically all human interaction for that point.
Oh, which brings up a very good quote from a gentleman we learned so much about, that every action or inaction stems from a need that either you are trying to have met or has not been met.
Right. So, and along that lines, all negative behavior is the result of a need that has not been met. And if you can identify the need and fill that need, then the negative behavior will disappear.
Yes.
Now, that is really easy to say.
Yes.
It's really,
really hard
to
to practice.
So, but even if you can get it right 10% of the time, your life is 1,000% better.
Yes.
Though, so just figuring that part of it out. So we have some sample of needs.
Sample of needs.
Here's some needs. Now, if you make a comment in the YouTube video below, then we can send you a copy of this. But here's some ones that we see in our family a lot: the need for choice, for clarity, for truth, fairness, safety, being heard, and support. And also
Play.
with our kids, need for discovery.
Yep,
A
need
need
for
for
play.
discovery and a need for play. And the need for play is probably the number one need for children next to the need for sugar, which they don't need, but they think that they do.
I think that they do. And that's, our child is over there nodding his head yes. And that play and discovery start from a very, very young age, and that is a need of theirs that will continue on.
It's built in.
into them.
It's totally built in, which is one of the reasons why having two children is better than having one child. I don't want to say better, just that there's an advantage.
It supports the need for play when they have a built-in playmate.
Otherwise, if you don't have a playmate for them, guess who their playmates are? Yeah.
Been
all
there.
the time.
Been
And
there.
that's what they want to do all day long.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, these needs. So first off is just identifying that feeling. So we use the example of taking out the kitchen trash. So when somebody's asking you to do a chore, a lot of the times the need that they have is support. Yeah, they're looking to be supported, especially maybe a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad. It's very easy to feel overwhelmed with everything that has to happen to maintain a household, and so there is a very strong need for support.
Yeah.
The need for support can sometimes and very often is opposite of the need for play.
Yes. When you are teaching this support to your children, it's going to hit friction with their need for play. Yeah.
Right. So a need for support could also kind of be hand in glove with a need for a cleanliness or a need for order, which is something that kids, they're just not connected to a lot of the time. They're very much connected to play, and cleaning up is not,
That's boring.
That's not fun. That's not play.
boring.
Yeah, that's not something that they want to do. So getting them to connect with the need for support and the need for order. So that could look like, this. I'm feeling annoyed because you guys took all my tools and dug a hole and left them in the backyard. And that does not meet my needs for support and for order.
Or care for the tools.
Or care for the
That's
tools.
not one that's on there, but it should be.
Yeah,
We
that
use
is
that a
one.
lot.
Yeah,
Care.
that's one. Need for
Need for
care.
care.
And so, using the tool that we've shared in some of our other videos, I'll have my kids
Repeat that back.
to me. Okay, can you repeat that back to me? And then sometimes I get, well, how am I feeling? And sometimes they struggle with that, which is really good that I identify that, because if I don't get them to identify with how I'm feeling, what are the chances are they're going to have the tools out in the backyard again?
Right.
So if I say, can you repeat it back? And they say, Dad's feeling annoyed. Okay. Why? Because we took out the tools. Okay. And what need was not met when you guys did that? Oh, the need for care and for support and orderliness. Yes. Thank you for hearing me.
And then, would you be willing?
Would you be willing to go put the tools away? So, and that is administering a level of discipline that is more effective than me whipping out my belt and beating their butts at that moment.
And it's also beautiful because what you are doing he's giving them an awareness also, those needs, how they can support, the needs for care and for order and such. But then he is supporting them with having a motivation for meeting those needs.
Well, and then I'm also teaching them empathy,
Yeah.
because they can empathize with the feeling. And I might even use the example, say, guys, if I went into your room and took out your toys and left them all over the backyard and didn't put them away, how would you feel? And they say, oh, I wouldn't like that. Oh, okay, well, how would you feel? Would you might be feeling angry? And they can say that, yes, and say, okay, so
Why? I'll ask that. I'll be like, why would you feel that way? Well, it's not nice.
That's not nice.
Oh.
Oh, it's not fair. Okay. So you can understand how I might be feeling because you just took out my stuff. So here again, I'm speaking to them as one human being to another human being who has needs, and there are things that are important to me, and there's things that are important to them. I didn't say that my tools were more important than their toys. I just said, this is important to me, and this is important to you. Can you imagine what this is like? And this is much more effective, or it's very highly effective, of them not repeating the same things. Now, next time it happens, I could include a consequence. I could say, you guys didn't meet the need for care and support, and we talked about this the other day, didn't we? Yeah, and you guys agreed this would be nice if I did this. Yeah, okay, so here's the consequence. You guys can't use my shovel for the next day.
Yeah.
Okay? It's kind of a natural consequence.
Right. And it's really important when you're putting, and we'll probably have another video on the consequences meeting, but making it a direct affiliation to what happened.
All right, so let's go back to the kitchen and the trash. So I didn't take out the trash, and so we've identified the feeling.
Identified that I was feeling annoyed.
Right.
Right.
So what need of yours has not been met?
The need for support.
Okay. So the need for support. So how might that conversation look like?
Well, if you have a partner that is on board with this language, very often I will just say, I'm feeling annoyed because you didn't meet my need for support by taking out the garbage. Would you be willing to go and support that need now?
I can just say yes.
And maybe I'll even, if he's like, oh, I didn't hear you, then we've already talked about that scenario and how we could walk through that. But
in another video.
Video, yeah, we've talked about
But
that.
even in that moment, she could say, I'm feeling annoyed because you didn't meet my need for support because you didn't take out the trash. And I could say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you make that request. And then you could say,
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure which example we're going with.
I'm sorry.
here.
So I say, I didn't hear you make that request.
Oh, okay. I hear that you didn't hear me make that request. So I'll make it now. Would you be willing to take out the garbage?
Yeah. Okay. So, we both got to say what was, going on with us, and she knows, like, oh, he just didn't, hear me. So again, this is a way of avoiding conflict or resolving conflict in a very, very, in an extremely civil way.
Yeah. I think it's important as well, in one of our other videos when we first talked under the umbrella of identifying and putting a name to your feeling, we talked about the positive and the negative, and the same thing goes with the needs, using the language of the positive with the needs. Jason is really good about commending the children, saying, Brody, I would like to acknowledge that you put your dish in the dishwasher, and I feel really delighted because you met the need for support for the family. And so this is definitely something that you use in the positive as well as when you're trying to work through conflict.
Yeah. So going back to the example of kids, one of probably the biggest need that we have for our kids is the need for safety.
Absolutely.
And at a very, very young age, I mean, even pre-verbal, we can use language about the need for safety. So, for instance, if you've got a kid who's who's mobile, just any form of mobility,
four-legged or two,
crawling or walking. Let's say you have a kid that is crawling and he's crawling towards the electrical outlets. Okay, let's just say that. It's like, I'm just looking, we got some power strips over there or whatever, and they're not baby proof, and you say, oh, sweetheart, we need to meet the need for safety by not touching this, and this is no touch. This is no touch. And a toddler, an infant can understand language like that.
It's much more powerful to use a word like safety, even in a moment of high intensity, as opposed to no.
Right.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes, safety's more specific. No is
Parents say no thousands of times a day.
Right. Exactly. And so do kids. It's a way of communicating choice. For a child to say no, they're communicating choice. Which is something that you want them to be able to do. You want to have a kid to be able to say no, because there are things they should say no to.
Absolutely.
Usually no is the first choice word that a child is using. So here going back to needs, when we have needs for safety. So as kids get a little bit older, and let's say they're tall enough to maybe to reach the stove. And so we have to use the word, we have a need for safety. I need you to stay away from the stove because it's hot. We have a need for safety.
And even at a very young age, having them use another tool that we've talked about, the repeating it back tool. I've been using it with my niece since she could start to form words. And you don't have to be long, just say, and however they can in small segments, we have a need, or I have a need for safety. I won't touch the stove.
Right.
Okay.
I remember when Xavier was about 4 and he was being curious.
Yes, a big need.
Which is a big need, is a need for, or is a big feeling or need is or that curiosity. And so he got a knife out and tried to cut up an apple himself, and he cut his fingers. Now, I could react by yelling at him or getting angry, but he's already had the consequence of hurting himself. I said, oh, I see you're feeling curious about cutting a cutting with the knife. And I said, this cutting alone, it didn't really meet our need for safety, did it? Because you cut your finger, and he says, yeah, okay. Well, in the future, I'm okay if you want to cut with a knife, but in the future, would you be willing to meet our need for safety by asking for help from an adult? Would you be willing to do that? Yes. Okay. So the next time you want to cut with a knife, what are you going to do? And that's asking him to repeat it back to me. So he says, I'll ask for help, from an adult. This can be tricky in the moment because that knee-jerk reaction is to run and get Band-Aids or to take the knife away or to remove the kid, from the situation. But when you communicate in this way of saying, okay, we have a need for this, you're honoring again your child's needs and their feelings as being, I'm a human being and you're a human being. You have a need for curiosity and for play. I have a need for safety. We both have a need for safety. I'm more connected with our need for safety than you are, which is why I'm pointing out that I would like you to pull your bike off to the side of the street when you see a car coming to meet our need for safety. Would you be willing to repeat that back to me?
Yeah. We use safety, and we just used it on our walk today. You know, walking the dogs and the kids, one's on bike and one's going on foot with me, and talking about, you know, as we're getting to the end of the road, what safety looks like. So this is something that you continue to use.
Yeah, especially
and
with kids.
reinforce.
But with each other as well. So like, what
Yeah.
are some needs between you and I that we have to, you know? So we talked about support.
So the needs that we have
Between
so
partners.
between partners, being heard, a need to be heard. I would say for me that's a big one. Well, and for you, you know, I think that's a big one. We have a need for, as partners, truth. You know, there's an emotional safety. That's a need that we get to support each other with.
I think a need that I was not aware of until we started working with this is a need for recognition.
Oh, absolutely, recognition.
Because you know, if a stay-at-home parent has, you know, all this work that they're having to do, and you come home and the first thing I just see is that the house is a mess or whatever, you know, and she's in overwhelm, then my saying, hey, I have a need for orderliness is gonna just put her right off the edge.
Yeah.
Because I just put another thing on top of her.
Yeah.
But when, you know, if I come home and say, hey, I just want to recognize that, you know, that you have a lot to do.
Yeah.
I'm de-escalating, you know, and which so probably what I'll get if I come home and say my need for order is not met, then I'm gonna pick a fight. But if I come home and I see that the need for order is not met, and I say, wow, I can see maybe you're feeling overwhelmed. You probably would like to have some recognition for all the hard work that you've had to do today, because obviously if the house is looking like this, that there's been a lot going on here. I don't know what's going on. I just want to recognize that you've probably had a lot going on today.
Yeah.
What will probably happen is I'll get a hug and she'll start crying.
And I'm going to show you a real life moment, just a moment. Hey, boys.
Yeah?
Would you be willing to close the door while you do your bedtime jobs, please?
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
So we honored them, gave them the choice. You know, would you be willing to? They could say yes or no.
Their electric toothbrushes are a little loud.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you also sometimes you have needs in conflict. So needs in conflict, the need for orderliness and the need for progress are very often conflict.
Right.
Because let's say you're cooking dinner and I'm a messier cook.
It's just different styles.
I'm a messier cook.
Yeah.
She tends to, I tend, you know, stuff tends to fly.
I clean as I cook.
She cleans as she cooks. I'm like, I'll clean after I'm done.
Yeah.
So so because of that, so I have a need for progress in cooking. She has a need for orderliness or a need for cleanliness. So we have to recognize that we have needs and conflict there, and she has to give away a little bit of her need for
Let go of the
cleanliness
control.
and orderliness. Yeah, I have to let go of that control, in recognition of the need for progress because she wants to eat, right? And then at the same time, when she's cooking, I have to be more patient. And my need for progress might not be met as quickly as I would like it to be met, because she's meeting her need for orderliness. So when we recognize that, hey, these are needs in conflict, and we have to what's the word I'm looking for here?
There's a give and take. So
Give
the
and take.
balance.
Balance, yes.
Balance.
We have to accommodate.
That's there you go.
Yeah, we have to
Accommodation.
accommodate the other person's needs at times, and just recognize it's like, oh, hey, this mess is meeting the need for progress, and cleanliness may need to happen later.
Yeah. That's pretty good. We talked about grown-ups, each other, opposite, children.
Yeah. Safety.
Talk about safety. Safety goes also into, we have pets, so using safety across the board, not just with children, but you can tie in the safety that you have when you have pets as well.
So there's actually, we could probably do a video just on each of the needs, but this is just an overview of just discovering, first off, of the feelings, needs, language of saying, okay, this is what the feeling is, or this is the feeling that I have, that I'm identifying in myself, or that I'm expressing to my partner, or I'm identifying in my partner, and then recognizing
connected to what need.
What the need is. So it's like, oh, honey, it looks like you're feeling overwhelmed. Could you need some support right now? Yes, I need some support. Okay, what could I do or say to support you right now? Because if I just need to give her a hug, and that is all the support that she needs, but I go and try to organize the school stuff on the table from homeschool, I totally just
You stepped over the
I
bounds
totally
for it.
just did the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Because all she needs is a hug, and for me to get out of her way. But if I try and go and fix something that I'm not supposed to fix, then I just created conflict.
Oh, I just remembered another big one for your kids. I know we talked about play and discovery is really big for kids and choice, but when we talk about feelings and needs, a lot of times what they may need is comfort. Comfort is a huge one, because as we mentioned in another video, you can't always fix everything, but if your child gets hurt physically, or their feelings, or even if they're feeling frustrated about something, so you start with that. It looks like you're feeling a little sad. Is that right? Yes. Okay. Sometimes you don't even have to say, are you feeling sad because you dropped your new toy, your Lego, and it broke? Okay. You could sometimes go straight to, I see you're feeling sad. Could you use some comfort? Yeah. And we have one son who he hugs, can fix everything. So comfort is a big one from a tender age, even pre-verbal.
Yeah, and those needs can actually be very different according to a child's love language.
Love language, which will be another.
Yeah, which Gary Chapman, The 5 Languages of Love, will get into discussing those, because when you understand a child's love language, or you understand your partner's love language, then you can actually be more intuitive about
how to support their needs.
About how to support their needs, because then you can actually start doing some non-verbal things.
Yeah.
Because hey, I can tell when my son just needs, he just needs a hug. Like and especially if him and I are having a conflict.
Yes.
And I feel like he's digging in his heels. I just say, I think you need a hug right now, and he just melts.
Yeah.
So those are some other ones, but this is kind of just the general overview of the needs, because then once you have identified the feeling, you have identified the needs, then you can go into empathy, and then and possibly a solution.